Hey guys, you're listening to the English Made Simple show. This is episode number 293, number 293, número 293. Welcome back, amigos y amigas. Welcome back. This is your host, Milena, speaking. You're tuning in to the English Made Simple show. You can learn more about the EMS show and what it is all about when you visit englishmadesimple.net. If you want to listen to the podcast straight from the website, simply type in englishmadesimple.net/podcast. And while you're there, you can also browse around and you can find a huge repertoire of the EMS episodes, as well as useful resources to help you accelerate your English learning. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about something different. We're going to learn how to give constructive feedback at work. And towards the end of the episode, you'll have a chance to repeat one phrase from today's show out loud. You can repeat that phrase after me and you have to say it out loud, okay? I know that the majority of you listening are interested in learning more about certain phrases that you could use at work. I know this because you told me so. You've done my listener survey. That's how I know. And thanks again to those people who have completed the listener survey so far. I've had more people do it, so let's keep them coming, people. I'd like to see more people do the survey. For the rest of you listening, if you've got 5 minutes to spare, I'd appreciate it if you could answer 7 questions for me inside that listener survey. That would be really helpful. All you have to do is go to englishmadesimple.net/survey and you'll find those questions in there. I'm quite curious to know who is listening to the EMS podcast. Who out there is listening to my show? I'd love to learn more about you, amigos y amigas. So if you've got a couple of minutes to spare, please go to englishmadesimple.net/survey, do that quick survey and answer the 7 questions. That would be really, really helpful. So in the last episode, episode number 292, you've learned 3 different ways to say, keep up the good work. And you've learned about the phrase, keep up the good work. Essentially, what this means is you're saying to someone, you're doing a great job. Okay? Keep up the good work. Keep going, you're doing great. So that's great. Hopefully everybody understood what this phrase was about. If you're not sure, go back to episode number 292 and have another listen. But what happens when someone is not doing a great job at work? What happens then? How can you tell that person that they're not doing something right without offending them, okay? Without insulting or offending them. Especially if you're working with that person, it is difficult to tell them that they're not doing a great job. You don't want to ruin relationships with people at work. You still have to work together, so it's best to keep it professional. Okay? So you have to choose the right words in this case. I understand it's not easy to tell someone that they're not doing a great job, but let's face it, it's not a great feeling for you and them. So it's not a great feeling for both parties to be in this situation, okay? So how can we make it as painless as possible? The number one thing to keep in mind here is to not use words that will attack someone personally, but focus on a more objective way when giving feedback. This is how constructive feedback differs from criticism. So I'm going to talk about something called constructive feedback in today's episode. I mean, most of you would know what criticism is, right? I think it's quite common in most languages, that word, what it means. You can criticize people. It's fine. You can do it if you want. I mean, you can criticize your husband on how he cooks or drives a car. Okay? Yeah, that's okay. I approve of that. Of course, I'm kidding, amigos y amigas. My husband is used to all this, so that's all good. Now, back to today's episode. So the meaning of the word criticism is, let's see, according to Buen Inteligente or the online dictionary, criticism means, what does it mean? Hang on. Right. To indicate faults of someone or something in a disapproving way. Indicate the faults of someone or something in a disapproving way. You're finding faults, something that's wrong with people. You're finding faults in people or situations in a disapproving way, non-agreeable way. When you criticize someone, they might actually feel attacked, so they either shut down or they become defensive. That's what probably their instinct is doing. But let's face it, it's not nice to put people in that situation. It's not nice to criticize people, especially in the workplace. So we should avoid criticizing people in the office. We should avoid using words that sound critical of other people. But it's okay to do it at home. Of course, I'm kidding, people. Only I can do that at home, all right? Radio. Moving on to the constructive feedback and what this means. What does constructive feedback mean? This is the feedback you give to someone based on their performance, like work, job performance, task performance, overall work performance, in order to get a successful outcome. Constructive feedback is a win-win for everyone involved. So for the person receiving the feedback and for the person giving the feedback, you should both have a win-win outcome, like both successful outcome together from that conversation. It creates better working relationships, working environments, enhances productivity, and promotes effective collaboration overall between team members. That's the idea behind giving constructive feedback. There's a lot more to cover around constructive feedback and using it in the workplaces and how to use it. But for today's episode, I'd like to introduce you to a couple of phrases that you can use to start a conversation, just to start that initial chat when you're about to give feedback to someone. Keep in mind, for the rest of today's episode, I'll be talking about constructive feedback here. And if applicable, I'll give you an example phrase of what you shouldn't say to someone because it might hurt their feelings. Well, here's one phrase. Let's use one phrase when working with teams. Most of you working in offices will most likely be a part of a team, right? Oftentimes, team members may not agree with certain ideas, or they might clash when working together on a project. Let's say you have a colleague who doesn't take your ideas on board, doesn't agree with your ideas. What do you say to that person? Let's say this person's name is John. And John proposes an idea that you think will never work for this project. What do you say? Do you say, John, that's a really bad idea? Even though you really want to say that. John, that's a really bad idea. Okay? Or do you say, hey, John, there are some great ideas here, but I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm not sure that particular idea would work because blah, blah, blah. Okay? And then you give the reason why you think that idea will not work. Instead of being straightforward with John and instantly disagreeing with him, saying that's a bad idea, it's best to ask some probing questions, okay? Approach it in a friendly way. For example, let me just think about that for a second, John. Just thinking out loud here, what if we did this instead? Okay? So you give another option to the proposed idea. As you can see, you want to ensure that you continue having a two-way conversation with John. You don't stop the conversation at all. You don't disregard him completely. So you're willing to debate the idea or have a conversation about this idea. Think of it as trying to solve problems together. You and John as a team, you're solving problems together. So your objective is to have a successful outcome from that conversation that would benefit the project on which you're both working on. You have a mutual goal is to work on that project successfully. Does it make sense, amigos y amigas? The key phrase here to remember is, I'm just thinking out loud, okay? I'm wondering if we could do it this way instead. Maybe I'm getting off track here. We're talking about telling someone they're doing a bad job. Okay, what do we mean by bad job? What I mean by this is, well, you can tell when someone's performance is not up to par, they're doing a bad job, they're not performing well. For example, their attitude at work has changed, they've become complacent and started to make mistakes in their work. This leads to bad performance that's affecting the performance of the whole team. So if you're a team leader, if you manage the team, this is not something you want in your team. You want everyone to work well together. So it's time to have difficult conversations with certain team members, okay, whose performance is not up to par. How do you start a conversation with someone and tell them they're making mistakes or they're bringing down everybody? Let's use John again as an example. How do you start conversation with John, who's making a lot of mistakes and bringing down the whole team? Start with a question where you ask John permission to give him feedback. This way, by asking him a question in a friendly way, you make the situation less threatening and it's more amicable, and you can have a pleasant conversation, okay? And you set an expectation as well with John, what to expect. So, for example, you could start with a question and say, "Hi, John, are you available to have a quick chat about something I noticed?" Okay? "Hi, John, are you available to have a quick chat about something I noticed?" "Hi, John, may I have a quick chat with you about something I noticed at work?" "May I have a quick chat with you about something I noticed at work?" "Hi, John, would you be open to feedback about something that I noticed at work?" Okay, so we are asking him questions and telling him that we would like to meet with him one-on-one and have a chat. Okay? Does that make sense, amigos y amigas? Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are nearing the end of the show. But first, I'd like you to repeat after me. Before we end the show, I'd like you to repeat one of the phrases after me. I'll pick one phrase from today's episode, and you can then repeat that phrase after me, okay? Here we go, amigos y amigas. Your phrase today is, "Hi, John. Are you available to have a quick chat about something I noticed?" "Hi, John. Are you available to have a quick chat about something I noticed?" Awesome. Cool bananas, amigos y amigas. This brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for listening and thanks for tuning in today's episode. You're always welcome to visit englishmadesimple.net/podcast to continue listening to the rest of the episodes. It's been a pleasure and I hope you've learned something new today. If something wasn't clear, be sure to send me an email or send me a message on Facebook and Instagram. Even though I don't post that often on social media, I do check my Insta feeds, so don't be shy to send me a message. You've been jamming with Milena from English Made Simple. Until next time, hasta la próxima!